As we've recently seen, the Ford Mustang 4-cylinder turbo is actually a very quick vehicle, even compared with some serious sports cars. So today I thought I'd pitch it up against a very fast front-wheel drive 4-cylinder turbo, the Hyundai i30 N, although it's called Elantra N overseas. I think it should be called the Elantra N in Australia too, because it's a different platform, it's much bigger. Anyway, and then here we've got the base model Ford Mustang in Australia anyway, 2.3 litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder, 232 kilowatts and 475 Newton meters versus a 2 litre turbo 4-cylinder in the Hyundai, 206 kilowatts and 392 Newton meters. So there's a bit of a gap there between power, especially torque. The 2.3 litre in the Ford, 475 Newton meters is a serious amount of torque for a 4-cylinder. Obviously it has a bit more capacity on its side too. But if we factor in the weight of these two vehicles, the power to weight ratio is actually in favour of the Hyundai, about 136 kilowatts per tonne versus around 133 kilowatts per tonne in the Ford Mustang. The Hyundai weighs just 1,515 kilograms curb weight, while the Mustang is well over 1,700 kilograms. So it'll be interesting to see how these two go against each other. As before, I'm going to set up the tripod in 3 positions down this private road for the full quarter mile, including at the start, about halfway. It's not really a 1/8 mile, but it's roughly halfway. The only reason I use that halfway point is because there's a nice spot on the tarmac where I know the camera's going to be in the same spot every time, and then down at the end of the quarter mile. And then during the editing, I match them up so they're perfectly aligned. It's taking off at the same time. At the end though, I'll show you the V-Box results. So these are results that I've achieved from a number of runs from both vehicles on separate days though. So if you really want to know what car is quicker, look at the V-Box results. That'll give you a proper, accurate representation of the true performance. I usually do around 5 runs with each vehicle when I test. Unless it's a manual, I might spend a bit more time, like 10 runs or something like that, or even 15 if it's really difficult to get off the line, with plenty of cool down in between so this clutch doesn't explode. But with these two, it's pretty easy. The Hyundai does feature a proper launch control system because it has an 8-speed dual clutch automatic. So it disengages basically the drive while it red lines at a predetermined, you can actually change it around between 2,500 and 3,500, I think. While the Mustang, it does have a drag race mode, like a drive mode, which sharpens up the throttle response, but it doesn't have a proper launch control that disengages the gearbox or the drive like the Hyundai does. So it'll be interesting to see how these two do against each other. With the Ford, you can pretty much nail the throttle in the drag race mode, and you can, chirps into 2nd and 3rd gear. It's a 10-speed automatic, so there's a lot of gears there to get through, whereas the Hyundai, just the 8-speed, it spins a little bit into 2nd, but after that, it's pretty good. The conditions for the Mustang here today, it's quite cool. It's about 21 degrees. We have had rain this morning. Right at the start here, it's completely dry, but you might notice there's a couple of little puddles, like just a little puddle just up here, and then the rest of the strip is pretty much dry. Just right down at the end, it's a little bit damp, but that should not impact the performance at all for the Mustang. And then with the Hyundai, it was completely dry. But yeah, the start here is totally dry. As you'll see, it chirps off the line just like it's in the dry. The other difference between these two is front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. So basically, if you don't know what that means, drive is sent to the rear wheels with this vehicle, from the engine down a tail shaft to the rear wheels. So it spins the rear wheels basically. While the Hyundai, the engine transfers power straight into the front wheels. What does that mean for drag racing? Well, actually rear wheel drive is typically better because as you take off, there is a bit of weight shift. So some of the weight will go to the back axle, and that's adding traction to the rear wheels, whereas the front wheel drive, it still does the same thing, but it's lifting the front axle. So you're actually making the front end lose traction even more. That's why sometimes you'll see, crazy front wheel drive drag cars with wheelie bars on the back, because it's trying to stop that weight shift happening, so to keep the front wheels planted on the ground. So with the Hyundai, I have managed to get quick times. I think with the hatchback, it was 5.19 seconds or something like that. It was just a perfect run, and although you can't change too much apart from the launch control revs, it's just, you're going to get a different result every single time pretty much. And yeah, I just happened to get this nice bit of traction along here, and it just gripped up really nicely. I did another one, it was about 5.25 or something like that, so it wasn't a mistake or a fluke or something. It actually did do that quick. Whereas the Mustang, yeah, it's pretty much consistent every time. Let's see how they go. There we go, the Ford Mustang gets there in the end. As you may have expected, we recently tested this and it produced some pretty good results. So yeah, it was always going to win, but by how much? Yeah, I thought that might be interesting. I think the Hyundai did really well, given it is front-wheel drive. That's a bit of a disadvantage, as I said, with traction getting off the line. I think it done really, really well. The Mustang, it's made for this sort of stuff. It loves straight line performance, and even though it is the 4-cylinder, it's still a very quick machine. As for what would I buy out of these two, it's pretty difficult, but for me, I would take the Hyundai. I like track driving, and the Hyundai just seems like a better track car. It's got a lot of different modes and settings you can play around with. Although the Ford does as well, even though it's the 4-cylinder, you've got an acceleration timer. It's even got a line locker, so you can do a burnout if you want to. But the Hyundai just has more adjustment, including when you're driving. You can throw the tail out, or you can just drive it grip driving, like follow the racing line perfectly and actually get really good times out of it too. It's a bit lighter, as I said, whereas the Mustang, the steering isn't the best in my opinion. It just feels a bit heavy and a bit, I don't know, it loses some communication at certain points of the steering range, but it definitely has awesome cruisability. It's really nice to just cruise along. I appreciate the Mustang because it's just such an iconic model. I think it also has a more, how can I put this? It's got better static appeal. So if you've got a Mustang in the garage, that's cool, you know, like it's a thing. Whereas the Hyundai doesn't really matter. If you have to say to people, you know, what have you got? I've got a Hyundai i30 N or Elantra N. Unless you know something about cars, they'll just go, no, that's pretty good. Whereas if you say a Ford Mustang, the chances are somebody, I mean, pretty much everybody is going to say, oh yeah, I know what that is, you know. So although it's a bit superficial, it's still a factor, I think. But yeah, in this case, I would choose the Hyundai because it's more of a driver's car. If you want something that's cruising and all that sort of thing, then definitely the Mustang is a cool car as well. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What would you choose out of these two? And if you'd like to see me pitch some different or odd models up against each other in a future virtual drag race, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.